We're continuing our baseball draft preview. We're so excited to be here. I'm here with the crew, and we're going to start with outfielders, the top outfielders. This whole segment is all about outfielders, but I'm going to give the top 10 guys. Then Ross is coming in with the next 10, Kasey with the next 10 after that. We've seen each other's lists, so we tried not to duplicate, and we didn't walk on each other. We're going to talk if we feel like one belongs in a different tier. Here's my top 10. I have Mike Trout first. I know some people are saying he's not number one. Mike Trout is number one all the way. Mookie Betts is a close second. Ronald Acuna is a close third. Christian Yelich is a close fourth. And Juan Soto is not a bad fifth. This is a huge stacked position, but of course, outfield has three different players you're going to play in the outfield. Cody Bellinger, if I'm going to pick him, I'm going to play him at first, but he does qualify in the outfield. I have him as the sixth one overall. Bryce Harper's next. I think he's a little bit overrated, but he still puts up big numbers. Aaron Judge, huge power numbers, but he always gets you injured. Still, I think he's in the top 10. Whit Merrifield, if you're going to take him, play him at second base. I still have him as the ninth overall outfielder. So, if you've got a great second baseman and you want Whit Merrifield, you can play him in outfield. And last, it's interesting. I had a lot of trouble between the guy who Ross ended up choosing as his top next outfielder. I'm not going to mention his name, but I was deciding between him and Starling Marte. I went with Starling Marte as the slightly safer pick, but Ross has the upside pick. Ross, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Dan. I'm Ross the Boss, and here's my second tier, we're going to call it, of outfielders. The person he was talking about is a Cuban kid that plays for the White Sox named Louis Robert. Yep, he has two first names, just like Ross the Boss. He's Cuban. He's young. He's in his early 20s, and he's a guy, if you have 5 categories for hitters, he'll help you with all 5. He steals bases, he hits home runs, RBIs, runs, his batting average. I know he batted 230 last year. I'm sure Kasey's good looking at his stats and says, oh, Ross, who we batted 230 last year? Doesn't matter. He's going to have a huge year, 150-something games. He's going to be a monster. Grab him. He's the closest we got to Ricky Henderson today. Next guy I like is Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker plays for the Houston Astros. Huge upside. I love him a lot. Marcell Ozuna. Did I say that right?
You did.
Dan?
Nicely done.
Okay. Marcell Ozuna, Silver Stick winner. A lot of upside. He should be ranked a little higher, but I like him a lot. Kyle Lewis is somebody I love. I love this kid from Seattle. He reminds me of like a young Ken Griffey Jr. He has power. He runs. He fields. He's not Ken Griffey. I'm wearing their shirt, but he is somebody you should be aware of. I love this kid. He has a lot of upside. He's young too. Charlie Blackmon. I love him in Colorado. I know you guys are saying, oh, he's getting old with the beard, the whole thing. I still appreciate him. I think he can hit 30 home runs and probably steal 20-something bases. We'll see what happens this year. George Springer, he's in a new environment. I love him in Houston. He's in Toronto now. Has a great recording cast. We'll see what happens. Randy, Kasey, help me with his name.
Arozarena.
Oh, Arozarena, thank you. Arozarena had 10 home runs in the postseason last year. He broke a record. I know it's kind of weird about him. People either love him or don't like him and don't appreciate him. So I'm curious to see where you'll draft him. I like him a lot. We'll see what happens. Elroy Jimenez, did I say that right?
Eloy Jimenez.
White Sox, another Cuban. The White Sox, I think, have 5 starters that are Cuban descent, which is unbelievable. I like him a lot of upside. Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham plays for the San Diego Padres. Another kid who has a lot of upside. I like him a lot. I think he'll go kind of lower in the draft. If you have a chance to draft him, go get him. And my last one was actually my last pick at first baseman earlier is Dominic Smith. I love Dominic Smith. He's somebody that will have huge numbers. Don't be afraid to draft him.
All right, we're going to move on to Kasey in the third tier, but it seems that when Ross runs out of a 10-person list, he just puts Dom Smith at the end.
That's all I do. Dom Smith.
That's his rule.
Dom Smith.
There's, I was worried when I was assigned the third group because I thought I'd be struggling to find value this low, but outfield is crazy deep. I mean, my first player is Austin Meadows. Last year was a bad year, but last year he came to camp he strained an oblique right away, and then he got COVID, and he had the more serious version of it. So it dampened his numbers. A year before, he batted .291 with 33 home runs and 12 stolen bases. So he's a potential top 10 to 15 outfielder that you can probably get pretty late in the draft. As long as he doesn't get stabbed again, Tommy Pham always puts up numbers when he's healthy. He's a lock for 2020, and he usually bats about 280, and you can get him later. Lourdes Gurriel, I had him ranked here. We mentioned him in the second baseman. If you watched the previous episode, I would play him at second base if I had him, but he's another young, exciting guy who can hit home runs, score runs. It's fun to watch. Ramon Laureano is another one who's a year off of it. These you get into some riskier picks in this tier, but Ramon Laureano 2 years ago, pre-COVID, he batted .286 with 25 home runs and 13 stolen bases. So another guy you can get who contributes in multiple categories. Then I go with my health picks. I am always intrigued by Byron Buxton. I love the package. He hasn't lived up to the potential yet, but I will always take him as my third outfielder because I know fishing the waiver wire, I can pick up somebody to replace him if he doesn't live up to that potential. And AJ Pollock, whenever he's healthy, he produces. He's a really talented player who can't stay on the field. Dylan Carlson in St. Louis is a player who has a speed, power profile. He's always hit for average, even through his career in the minor leagues. He's going to get a chance to play every day in St. Louis. I think he could be a monster there. Then I have my two, I call them kind of steadies, in Michael Brantley and Andrew McCutchen, these predictable players who are going to get on base, score runs, average pop, won't hurt you in batting average, might even help you in Brantley's case. And then lastly, I took my lottery ticket is Clint Frazier. He finally got the chance to play with the Yankees last year. He rewarded them with some really impressive numbers. He's going to get the full-time left field gig this year. Brett Gardner is going to be that fourth outfielder, and I think he can really help you, and you can get him pretty late.
I love when we get into the third tier of outfielders or the back end of the infielders that we did in last time, because you start to get different kinds of profiles that you can use. You can get those veterans that are great value picks. You can get the young guys who could really explode and move all the way up into the top 10. So I'm going to go into sleepers now. I've got two guys that did make the list, and then I've got a bunch of guys that weren't on the list at all, that are just people to be looking out for, and these guys have big upside. So Luis Robert, or if he were French, he'd be Luis Robert. I don't know how to say his name. He's got two first names, and I can't even figure out how to pronounce him. I had him either 10th or 11th, but this guy has the upside to be a top 5. He's just that good. I think if you have a chance to get him, he's one guy that's very hyped that I think you still get. Kyle Tucker's another hyped guy that I think is worth going for. Now, here's a list of guys that I think are going to be really good that didn't get mentioned in our top 30. One guy I want to highlight, Alex Verdugo. This guy on the Red Sox, he was a very high prospect with the Dodgers. He got dealt to the Red Sox, and he performed there. He's done very well there. Another guy coming back from injury, Yordan Alvarez on the Astros. This guy was a monster in 2019. These are guys you can get maybe in that third tier. Maybe you take them over Andrew McCutchen or someone like that, where you can just get a little more upside. I'm not saying Andrew McCutchen's a bad pick, but it's just another way to go. Eddie Rosario signed with the Indians, and he's always put up numbers. I don't know if the change of scenery will make it harder for him, and the lineups maybe not as good, but he's still a very good player. We talked about Ryan Mountcastle as one of your sleepers, Kasey, in the first base segment. He also qualifies at outfield. He'd be a great player to get, and also he's a good backup first baseman then, so you've got both. Jared Kelenic, I don't actually know how you say his name, but he's with the Mariners also. Ross is wearing the right uniform for this guy. He's a big-time upside guy. He's ranked right now as the fourth best prospect in baseball, but he's set to arrive this year. You need to have him in your radar. Joe Adell is another guy, young player who didn't get that much of a chance, and he could be the next Luis Robert, however we say his name. These guys are great sleeper picks. Let's go with some value picks and Ross.
These are guys that are way, way below where they should be in the Yahoo ratings right now that people forgot about because they didn't have great years last year or they were hurt. JD Martinez. So you throw away JD's last year. He had a horrible year. He was hurt. He batted under 300. He's batted over 300 almost his whole career. He has a 290-something career batting average. This guy's a monster. He's 32 years old. I don't want to hear, oh, he's too old. He's 32. He's not old at all.
Listen, I agree. I think JD Martinez.
So JD Martinez, everybody forgot about him. He's like 150 something on Yahoo, way too high. He's a great hitter. If I can draft him, I will. Giancarlo Stanton is another guy. He came back from his injury last year, and he was a monster for the Yankees. They have a monster lineup, like I told you on paper. They're the best team in baseball, and he's like in the 300s. He's like in the 300s, Giancarlo Stanton, and he's a great value pick. If you can pick him as your third outfielder, Giancarlo Stanton, it's unbelievable. Yep. That could happen, especially with Kasey Scheinfeld. He could do that. Another one that Kasey mentioned is Tommy Pham. Tommy got COVID last year. He was out for a while. I don't think he even played. I don't even play last year. I can't remember even playing. But that being said, he loves strip clubs. He got in a little altercation last summer in the strip club. So he loves going to strip clubs and getting in fights. But that being said, he's in San Diego. He's going to have a great lineup, and he's going to have a great season. It could be a great value pick for your team.
All right, I like it. Now, Kasey, let's catch us up to speed on a couple of busts.
Okay.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Well, I'm going to start with the one I had to pronounce for Ross, and that's Randy Arozarena. Now, he did have an epic playoff run, and even the last few weeks of the season itself. I had him on my team last year. I enjoyed every second of him, but I'm not paying fifth round value for him. He's ranked 59th as the draft position, and he just doesn't have the track record to support it. He doesn't have the history behind him to go that high. He wasn't one of these hyped prospects like Kelenic, who everybody's known about him for a few years. He was the big part of the Mets trade that got them Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano, giving the Mariners the clear win in that trade, I think. He just doesn't have the trust yet to take that high. Teoscar Hernandez, another guy I owned last year and was very glad I did. He put up crazy numbers last year in terms of power and production and average. But this is a guy who's a career 240-ish hitter who strikes out 1/3 of every at bat, 1/3 of the time he's at the plate. That's just not trustworthy ever for this outlier season last year. I'm not going to pay to get him in the top 80 players this year. And then my last pick, maybe I don't like the Toronto outfield that much, but I think George Springer is always overrated, or at least has been the past few years. And he's in the fourth round pick in average draft position. He's on a new team. He doesn't run anymore. He hits a lot of leadoff home runs, and that is really helpful in one category because it gives you only one run and one RBI. And so I don't think he's worth the price you have to pay for him either.
So I think one thing we're learning is that if you are on Kasey's team and you play extremely well, he'll pick you as a bust the next year. I don't know what it is. If you treat Kasey well, he'll just get rid of you. It's not true in friendship, at least I hope. But anyways, we have done our job to get you ready for the outfield, and we are excited to continue this. Coming up next is starting pitching, so pay attention for our next video when it drops. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below. We like nothing more than a good fantasy baseball debate. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we will talk it up.